A friendship that once looked close on the outside, but behind closed doors, prosecutors say it had become controlling, manipulative, and deeply unhealthy. And in the end, one woman lost her life. This is the disturbing case of Shamaria Mimi Fletcher and her roommate, Okisha Maria Range. But before we begin, some of the stories we cover here involve serious allegations and vulnerable victims. The purpose of the STJ Archives is not to sensationalize tragedy, but to examine these cases, understand what happened, and remind ourselves why accountability and protection for the vulnerable matter. Let's get into it. Shamaria Fletcher, known to her friends as Mimi, was a 34-year-old woman living in Atlanta, Georgia. According to reports and testimony during the trial, Fletcher had once been very close with Okisha Maria Range. The two women had reportedly been best friends at one point. Eventually, they became roommates and shared a townhouse on Piedmont Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. But what started as friendship slowly changed. Prosecutors later described the relationship as bizarre and controlling, claiming that Range had become extremely dependent on Fletcher both emotionally and financially. Witnesses testified that Range had been living in the home without paying rent or contributing to any groceries. Over time, tensions between the two became strained and began to grow. During the trial, prosecutors presented testimony suggesting that Range often tried to manipulate the people around her. One of the most striking accusations involved claims that she frequently pretended to be ill. A former roommate testified that Range would sometimes draw attention to herself by claiming medical emergencies. According to that testimony, she would suddenly appear to have seizures or other issues involving her health, especially when friends or visitors were around. The prosecution argued that these behaviors were attempts to control the environment and keep attention focused on herself. But the defense strongly disputed this claim. Range's attorney insisted that she did, in fact, suffer from legitimate medical conditions. Prosecution was mischaracterizing her health struggles. The thing came to a tragic turning point on March 2, 2022. That night, police were called to the townhouse where the two women lived. When officers arrived, they found Shamaria Fletcher unconscious inside the home. Emergency responders attempted to help her, but it was already too late. Fletcher was pronounced dead at the scene. An autopsy later determined the cause of death was a manual strangulation. That meant the victim had been killed by someone using their hands. Investigators quickly focused attention on the person who had been living with her, Okisha Maria Range. As detectives began questioning Range, prosecutors later claimed something unusual happened during the interview. According to the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, Range appeared to have seizures while speaking with investigators. Prosecutors argued that these episodes were not genuine medical emergencies, but rather attempts to manipulate the situation and disrupt questioning. During the trial, clips from the interviews were played for the jury. The prosecution suggested that this behavior was part of a larger pattern of control and attention seeking. But again, the defense rejected that interpretation. Range's attorney maintained that her medical issues were real and that the investigators were misreading her condition. Prosecutors argued that the conflict between the two women had been building for some time. They claimed Range had become obsessed with and financially dependent on Fletcher. And when Fletcher reportedly began pulling away from the relationship, tensions escalated. According to the prosecution, the breaking point eventually turned violent. The state argued that Range strangled Fletcher during a confrontation inside their home. It was a shocking allegation involving two people who once called each other friends. The case eventually went before a jury in Fulton County. During the trial, prosecutors laid out the argument that Range's behavior showed a pattern of manipulation and control. Witnesses' testimony, police interviews, and evidence from the investigation were presented to the jury. The defense maintained Ranger's innocence and challenged the prosecution's interpretation of events. They argued that the state had not proven its case beyond a reasonable doubt, but after hearing the evidence, the jury reached a decision. Okisha Morel Range was found guilty of murder. The court sentenced her to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Her defense attorney indicated plans to pursue a motion for a new trial and appeal the conviction. But for now, the sentence stands. Cases like this raise difficult questions about relationships that slowly turn toxic over time. Sometimes controlling dynamic and emotional dependency can develop quietly behind closed doors, long before anyone outside noticed the warning signs. Friends and roommates often share a level of trust that makes betrayal even more devastating. And when those relationships break down in extreme ways, the consequences can be irreversible. At the center of this tragedy is a life that was lost. Shamara Mimi Fletcher, a woman that was trying to help another woman. A woman whose story now serves as a reminder of how complicated and dangerous interpersonal conflicts can become. STJ Squad, what do you think about this case? Do you believe the warning signs in relationships like this are often overlooked until it's too late? Or do you think situations like this can escalate in ways no one could have predicted? Share your thoughts below. If you like deep conversations like this, then grab the Spilling the Juice book series at spillingthejuice.com, now available on all major book platforms. STJ Archives, signing off.